طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. دكتورة منال نبدأ إن شاء الله.
يلا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to welcome everyone to our first webinar today. I'm happy that everyone was able to join us. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Mona Kamal Ismail. I am the Dean of the Scientific College of Design. I'm also a member of the Board of Directors of the Oman Association of Quality in Higher Education. I'm glad to introduce today that we have 160 registered participants in our webinar. We're also collaborating with the Ministry of Higher Education, broadcasting through their Instagram account. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm pleased to announce that we have so much participants in today's webinar. The higher education sector has been affected by the pandemic just as any other sector. Higher education institutions, regulatory bodies, accreditation agencies had to adjust their policies, their procedures, their systems. As we've all attended different webinars by different institutions, just as OAQHE, CHIA, the Arabian Network for Quality Assurance, the QS roundtables, in order to become aware of how institutions are adjusting around the world. Discussions also has included governance and management, staff and student support, infrastructure, expansion of learning management systems, course design, assessments, engagements. I'm honored to inform everyone that the OAQHE has prepared a series of webinars as a platform to share experiences among Omani higher education sector. Today's webinar will be sharing experiences of lessons learned during the pandemic and our plan for the next academic year with the association and with the collaboration of the Ministry of Higher Education, as well as Sultan Qaboos University and Muscat University. Allow me to introduce today's agenda. I will go quickly over some house rules. Professor Taqi will have the opening address as the chairperson of the OAQHE. Then we will share Ministry of Higher Education views by Dr. Jokha Al-Shakily, and then Sultan Qaboos University experience and their own plan for the upcoming academic year by Dr Ibraheem Al-Harthy, and then followed by another session by Muscat University experience and plan for the upcoming academic year by Dr Samya Al-Shanfari. Then we will have a poll of 7 questions and summing up and a conclusion remarks by Professor Taqi. Let's start with our opening remarks. Allow me to introduce to you Professor Taqi Al-Abdwani. Professor Taqi is the Deputy Chair of the Board of Directors of Gulf College. He is the Board of Director Chair of the Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education. He is also an external reviewer of the OAQHE and Ministry of Higher Education as a subject expert. Dr. Taqi, the microphone is with you.
Hello, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who contributed and participated to be with us today. I would like to thank Dr. Jokha to be the guest of honors and to give us all the support and the platform. Actually, today also we have a live for the webinar because of the number of the registration. I would like to thank also OAQHE to be really our excellent service providers. Our offices right now are inside OAQHE, and that came to us from the recommendation by His Excellency, the Undersecretary, Ministry of Higher Education. I would like to really thank all the higher education institutions who support the association. And as you know, the association, the board members, we are about 7 board members. We don't take any salaries. We are there for the sector and from the sector. Actually, in my coming 15 minutes, I'll be talking about two topics. And the first topics will be about the challenges facing the higher education sector in terms of COVID-19 and the upcoming technology. We've been attending a lot of workshops on Arlene. Arlene is a network between Arab and European universities. And the question was there, really, is it the upcoming semester? Do we talk about the challenges only for the upcoming semester, or the life will be changed after September? And I think this is one of the things which I want to highlight very briefly because I have limited time. And the second thing I want to share with you what the association have been achieved so far. So my first thing, really, we know about the higher education sector. I'm not going to talk about the details of the higher education sector, but we have the standards for the premises. Everyone made this investment. Number of the programs have increased. Number of the students has been increased. And to be honest, today, if we see the key challenges facing any country, and higher education has a lot of expectations in terms of working with the community, working with the industry, and solving some of the national challenges. I'm talking about unemployability. And we know the unemployability because of COVID-19 has been increased a huge percentage. We know also the jobs. There's a lot of studies, scientific studies, shows 7,000 of job titles going to disappear, and 2,000 new jobs will come. Really, that puts a lot of demand on higher education. Managing higher education, and let me talk to you from the experience. I was a dean of the college. It's very complicated. It's like managing one of the 500 fusion companies, because we have a lot of stakeholders to deal with. We have staff, students, parents, board of directors, board of trustees, legislation bodies, society, and the industry. And the expectations are very, very high from all the stakeholders. Now, looking to the what higher education is supposed to do in terms of UNESCO, it was teaching and learning, research, and community services. But the life, I think, put some extra burden on us is really about the job. And what is worrying here, when the students get into the higher education, he or she will spend 5 years to be graduated. The job market in 5 years are changing and changing. I think it's very, very difficult to predict the future, but at least we can do our best. What make the scenario complicated? Even the technology, and the technology is going very, very fast, and also the skills. What are the skills are required today? People talk about hard skills, soft skills, emotional intelligence, technological skills, and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, I think, is very, very. When we talk about entrepreneurship, obviously innovation is linked to it, because 80% of the jobs are in small businesses, and I think that makes very, very complicated. Even when we apply to be accredited by anybody, employability is one of the standards, and I think that shows us really that there is a lot of challenges. If we ask anyone what is the good university, people might give you various answers, but most of the people will agree. Good education or good university means graduates, the knowledge, skills, and the employability. Because if a lot of people now go to the universities. Why they go to the universities? Because they want jobs, they want skills. And if in the end of the day they don't get that, that's a problem. One of the problems, actually not the problem only of Oman, it's actually the problem of the world, is the relationship between higher education sector and the industry. What I mean by the industry here, the job market. Really, I think we need to work a lot on that, and perhaps we will need to get the help of Ministry of Higher Education, how to build more bridges between the sector and the world of employers. And I think one of the problems or one of the challenges which really I get very frightened of, where we are and where we're going, especially if Oman, as any other countries, might say, okay, let's the online learning we can accept, then I'll tell you the competition will be very high. The whole world will become like a university without boundaries. And I think we cannot compete with the European, American, Canadian, Australian, or even the Chinese universities. And that really needs puts a lot of question. And I think we need really, as higher education strategic, or board directors, board of trustees, to think where is the future and how we can work together to avoid what they're talking about. Today, they're talking about in USA and Europe, UK, 20% of universities will disappear in coming 2 years because of the financial issues. Yesterday, I was in a debate with the British and the European universities, and they say the staff, the students' postponement and dropout for the upcoming semester will increase from 6% to 25%. Means the revenue will be reduced by 25%. We don't know whether this will apply to in Oman or not, but we know that if we go 100% online, a lot of students still from villages, wherever they might have a problem in terms of the technology. So I think there is a lot of things really we need to think and worry about. Is more than what and how we're going to act in the upcoming semester. In terms of achievements of the association, we were a network in 2018, April. We changed our status. Thank you, Ministry of Higher Education. Thanks all the ministries, all the government bodies, Education Council, who help us to change the status. So now we are independent. We have our own bank account. We get our own audited. Since then, really, we tried to do a lot of activities. 2018, we had some activities, and it was in terms of workshop. If you ask me what is OAQHE is about, OAQHE is really sharing good practices. I know a lot of your staff, various universities and colleges staff, they do internal workshops, they do workshops outside Oman. But our workshop is different. It's like what's going to happen today, sharing good practices from the sector to the sector. Obviously, we have organization who hosted our events previously. Today, we're doing our events is on the electronic platform. This year, also, when I talk about our programs, will be most of it will be electronically. So I would like to thank the universities who supported our previous events. I'm going to put my presentation today, inshallah, on the association's platform. Probably we'll put all the presentations in association platform. One of the things which we have done in the past, all the events were in Muscat. Now, some time ago in March 2019, we done in Nizwa. This year we were planning to do one in Sohar, one in Salala. But because of the pandemic, we decided to do this year events through the net, through the webinars. But next year, inshallah, I promise you, and on my behalf and on the behalf of the board of director members, that we will make some of the events outside Muscat really to give the opportunity to visit different places also, and also to give the opportunity for us to, when we go to Sohar, Salala, or Nizwa, we see their premises also, and I think give us better options. In terms of our plan for 2020, we got our AGM and the new board of members has been selected. I would like to thank them. We really now in every meeting ask ourselves what we have achieved for the sector and what we're going to achieve for the sector. We have decided to do two committees, and those two committees were announced to the sector. Based on that, we have the plan for this year and all the activities which we're going to conduct. For example, today's activity, the reason we decided to do the sharing good practices, because we know we might be making a lot of contributions in terms of knowing what other organizations doing. Today, what we have done, we have selected one government university, Sultan Qaboos University, and I don't have to talk about Sultan Qaboos University. It's, everyone is proud of it, and Muscat University, they're moving very, very fast. So we decided to bring one private and one government. Then we have some other workshops coming up. Those will be on our website. And to be honest, when we decide the topics of the workshop, is not because what the members thinks. We take input from the sector, and now, after every workshop, we ask the audience, what are the other workshops you want us to talk about? So those are the workshops. There was a conference, and the conference supposed to take place in February, but because of the pandemic, we postponed it. Now we're discussing what will be the right time, and most likely it will be in February, because we know that the whole sector will be busy, inshallah, with the September. So we want to see how the experience goes. Based on that, we will decide the date and the time for the new conference. Now, for higher education institutions to be a member, we have three options. We have option for universities, option for colleges, and option for the individuals. Universities, we give them 4 membership. Colleges, we give them 2 membership, and individual 50 riyal. What happens if a university wants to nominate 10 people? We had that experience. We have no problem, and we talk to the university one-to-one, and we give them a discounted rate. So we don't charge 50 riyal per any individual additional members. This is number one. Number two, the sustainability. We don't, as I said in the beginning, members do not take any salaries. The only salary probably we have for the administrator, and we have only one administrator. So financial sustainability is very, very important. I would urge all of you, please encourage your universities and colleges. If you are not a member so far, please renew your membership. When I say you are not members, the charter says the members are the organization who paid the annual subscription, and our financial year starts in 1st of January. Thank you very much for your support. I will not, go by the names, because we have a lot of people supporting us. Again, I would like to thank Ministry of Higher Education, Education Council, OAQHE, and the board members. Let me tell you, me being as one of the board members, we work very, very hard, and we have one agenda, is how we can serve and do the capacity building and meet the job description of the association, and do whatever we can for the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Taqi, for your overview. Our first panelist is Dr. Jokha Al-Shakily from the Ministry of Higher Education. Dr. Jokha is the Director General of Private Universities and Colleges. She has witnessed the development of private higher education sector in the last 2 decades. She has been active in different national committees for developing policies and strategies to improve higher education in Oman. She has also participated in a selection of national projects pertaining to quality assurance in higher education. Dr. Jokha, the mic is with you. Dr. Jokha, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself. while Dr. Jokha is setting up, maybe I can discuss a couple of points with Dr. Taqi. Dr. Taqi, thank you for your overview again. You have mentioned several challenges and opportunities that could be addressed today in higher education sector. Thank you for highlighting the idea of the job market and aligning our programs, our academic programs, with the job market. Can you elaborate, please, a little bit on this alignment and what you think, in your opinion, higher education institutions should do to create and to adjust their academic programs to the new market jobs?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think that's very tough question for two reasons. Because for us to issue, or start a new program, there is a lot of processes which we have to go through, internal and external. And I think if I was like a dean or a vice chancellor of a university, first thing I'll see where are the future jobs, and there are 2,000 new jobs coming up. The second question I'll ask, do I have faculties really to run those jobs? The third question would I ask myself, I'm going to run those programs as what? As academic or professional courses or a training programs. I think it's diversification is very, very, very important. And you see what happens, some of the jobs going to change. They will not be there anymore, especially, for example, now what is happening for the law. The law programs are changing. There is a lot of supports coming, like through the what we call it, the platforms, like people started with what we call it, the hotels software. Now every discipline, every post, those are coming. There will be a lot of supports. So I think it's more really than answering it in this short. Probably we need a session to see how we as higher education sector can react. Internationalization, every problem brings opportunity. Now a lot of people cannot travel to Europe, USA, to whatever. So I would ask, why we cannot take that opportunity in Oman? We have the students visa system, and why we cannot work together as higher education sector and see how we can attract international students. Drop of 25% in upcoming semester will affect the economy of any college and any universities. If it can shake universities, Oxford, Cambridge, and those leading universities, I'll tell you, it will shake us as well. I think Dr. Jokha is back now, so you can go to Dr. Jokha.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Taqi, and good morning to my colleagues, my friends in the Quality Assurance Omani Association. I'm so sorry, the technical glitch is always, running after us. And during Corona, I think we should not have it anymore. We should, we are coming to a new era. So thank you so much, and thank you for your presentation, Dr. Taqi. And it's really inspiring how the association is moving fast, and I think you have, heavy homework right now during this pandemic. Well, I'm glad to be with you to share my, I would say, personal observations, thoughts on how we are dealing as a Ministry of Higher Education with the pandemic. I will mix up with my, my personal, thoughts with the Ministry of Higher Education as well. The way forward, how we will take the coming period, and I'm sure everyone is waiting for that. Until now, we don't have something final. Things are still under discussion. We are waiting the Supreme Committee to give us the green light. But I will share with you some scenarios which we already discussed with the sector. Anyway, I will just share my presentation, and I think Dr. Taqi have mentioned a lot of things that I might repeat them in different way. I'm sharing now in my presentation. I hope you can see it.
Yes, clear.
Can you see my presentation? Clear. Is it clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, great. So my presentation will be, about the, sorry, just I need to share it again, I guess. Okay. Okay, so about the impact of COVID-19 on higher education, and I think education, as a whole, whether it's higher education or schooling, KGs, vocational, all type of education is really impacted globally and of course locally. I will share with you some learning lessons from different countries, and we will talk about the main pillars for successful e-learning. And those main pillars will work for Oman or any other country. And I will share with you how the
Mute, Dr. Jokha.
Dr. Jokha, we cannot hear you for some reason. The sound is... Yeah. Okay, there you go. There.
I don't know, there's a problem when I open the presentation, it just closed for some reason. Okay.
No, we can hear you.
You can hear me. What about now?
Yes, now it's fine.
Okay, so this is my outlines of today's presentation, and I will not go through it again. I just mentioned them. I will share with you the impact of COVID-19 on higher education globally, and I'm just stating the obvious that when the pandemic started, there is a complete shutdown of all schools and universities around the world. We are, Oman wasn't unique on that. Around 1.6 billion students could not go to schools or universities, and they start working remotely. And unfortunately, some categories, they couldn't even, go to schools. How much the disruption and destruction, of education system happened on early March. And this, touched all the academic, operational, social, technical, and you name it. All of these were, impacted. And again, with that disruption, millions of international students return homes. And I heard Dr. Taqi saying that, there will be a hot competition when it comes to online. And I'm just thinking about one of the mega trends in higher education, where education or higher education will move from the internationalization perspective to more of localization as a trend. And we might see this is happening, along the way. So with the international students, around the world, we have around 5 million international students, where in the United States by itself, they have 1 million. So many students, they go back to their home countries, and that, of course, will cause a harmful impact on the economy of those countries which depend on the international students. Academics mobility are at stake due to the travel restrictions, and you might notice that when you want to bring academic to work in your organization, and that also, it might be also an opportunity of dealing with many academic staff who are not at home, and you can utilize their services. Of course, service conferences and student exchange programs are cancelled. Massive investment on ICT structure, internet speed, and educational platforms, and staff training took place. One of the studies from UNESCO share a lot of concerns that we also, as a higher education, observers, also witness it. And this study is conducted by UNESCO, and it's all about how COVID-19 is impacting higher education. And the study share many things that sound to be obvious and not new to us in Oman, where, for example, campuses all have been stopped, and this is happening in Oman, and 80% of respondents believe that COVID-19 will impact student enrollments number and in the coming academic year. And I guess the study just, points here for the international students, who cannot travel because of the travel restrictions. Affect teaching and learning for all higher education, yes, because we are moving as an emergent move, to online, which is, most of the institutions were unprepared for it. Negative impact on research, and 80% of higher education institutions suffered from that impact. The increase of virtual mobility, and we are, witnessing that as well. I will share with you some learning lessons from different countries, and I won't share it as their, efforts in terms of only online education, because online education cannot be successful unless there is a complete, comprehensive, holistic, infrastructure, led by governments. And you will notice that while I'm mentioning those countries, they are sharing something in common as good practice. And what they share is that the efforts of digitalization is not new for them, and they have long-term strategy where they were able to succeed when pandemic came in, because they were ready and they have the right structure and the infrastructure. Estonia is very well known of Estonia e-government model, and they are maybe number one in terms of the digitalization, and they have been they have a lot of portals, and they could integrate a lot of e-services within the government and private sector, and that's why I think they are a good model and they able to succeed in e-learning. And they have a lot of efforts starting, from 2007 on that. Finland as well, and Finland, they have a lot of, they have been recognized for their education, and that education, efforts and their successful stories on online did not come alone. It was with long-term also government efforts and initiatives and programs. Switzerland as well, and Switzerland, the interesting thing about Switzerland, they are always on top of any digitalization index, competitiveness index worldwide, and they have a very interesting model that I will share it with you later on. And Singapore as well, very well known, and they started in 1997 a long-term strategy to embrace ICT in all education, starting from schooling along the way to higher education. UAE and Qatar are also very good models in the Middle East, and it's worth mentioning them, as they have digital national strategy, which started early into 2012, and in Qatar in 1995 it's come along with Qatar Foundation program. This is the Switzerland roadmap and how they were able to succeed in their efforts, because I'm sorry, and they were able to succeed because they put a lot of pressure on higher education universities to lead the digitalization. It's not the government alone, but the government gave the leadership on that, and to a project called Swiss Virtual Campus, and that is around where all universities are member on that virtual campus, and they have a lot of research and projects leading the experience to be a successful one. UAE, they have a lot of initiatives and programs related to higher education, and of course this has come along with a great infrastructure of digitalization and government, I would say, efforts toward e-government and portals. Mohammed bin Rashid program, which started in 2012, focused more on smart learning, and they start preparing schools and then later on higher education. But most of the initiatives started at school, and I feel that that is a very good strategy, because without having a complete online infrastructure, in the schools, the students, they have a great gap when they go to higher education if they don't break that gap much earlier. So these are type of, projects that handled by UAE to be ready today, to lead, online education, and they succeeded, especially in schooling. They have a lot of platforms. To speak about Oman experience, I don't want to undermine the experience here. We have very good experience, but we have a lot of gaps as well. I think to 2020 is a turning over year, and I think a lot will happen now, and with the Ministry of Telecommunication efforts and initiatives, I think we will be able to move on online. I won't say smoothly, but I think our readiness will be much better than before. As you see, we started with 2000, and then e-Oman, it's become the main portal for government services, and this is improving, but still, I think we need to work more on the infrastructure. Without proper infrastructure, we cannot, speak loudly about online successful efforts. The main pillars of any successful e-learning experience, it's mainly rely on three things: having a complete ecosystem, because we cannot put burden on higher education to start online without having national strategies that support that efforts. And of course, we should have a clear governance who leads the online education and proper funding, which also from the government. Readiness as well is very important, and we need to focus on that, on academic and student skills, e-courses, contents, and I think you are facing that problem where you don't have, you might have some online initiatives, but it takes some time to convert the traditional courses to e-courses. ICT infrastructure again, and of course the usage, the provision of tools, services, and continuous support for students, and then having KPIs. These are the three main pillars for e-learning experience. To share with you what Minister of Higher Education have done to respond to the pandemic, and I think all the private higher education institutions, they were with us step by step since the start. Of course, like all other countries, Oman started by shutting down all the closure of all universities and colleges, and of course schools, but I will focus on university and colleges here. And immediately when that shutdown come, the government immediately respond by giving the chance to those institutions that are ready to proceed with online education to start, instead of deferring the semester. And at that time, we don't know how much we should defer, the course or the semester. Is it 1 month, 2 months? It wasn't clear. But that is at the first month, we saw many good practices within the sector where they moved towards online, and where others, choose to just postpone it for some time. Later on, sequential decisions announced by the ministry to enable institutions to start with online, and we gave them general guidelines instead of spelling out all the details. And I think the sector were really responsible of taking the lead, and we have seen the private higher education sector having some great moves and initiatives, and that because of many factors. I will share it with you later why private higher education institutions, they might be in a better shape than other public institutions in online education. Now we are working on the guidelines for the necessary precautions to prevent the spread of the coronavirus, which will be immediately announced and shared with the institution to work on it. Be prepared for the coming semester, and I will share with you the scenarios to commence the new academic year, which is still under discussion with the sector, and we also under discussion with the Supreme Committee. When we talk about the readiness of private higher education institutions, there are many factors that impacted that readiness. In fact, the variation of ICT structure in different higher education institutions. I'm not talking here about the national infrastructure, but I will say the internal ICT structure and infrastructure within the institution, which had some of the institution to excel very quickly. The variation of investment and strategies available to accommodate e-learning in some institutions was really good, and they were able to, to proceed because of that. Availability of qualified technical staff to support the implementation of e-learning. Some of the institutions, they have good qualified technical staff, and that is a factor which helped to enhance the experience. Cooperation level with telecom services providers to obtain distinguished packages for students and academics. Unfortunately, not all of the institutions they went through that experience, but we have some good stories where they have very smart deals with the Ministry of Telecommunication, which give them a very good packages for them and for the students. A level of support obtained from different academic partners, and this is maybe more, relevant to the private institution because they have academic affiliation, which some of the academic affiliation were very good, supporters for in this period. When we talk about the private higher education experience, I will tell you that they might be, succeeded because they have better experience in dealing with well-known platforms such as Blackboard, Moodles, and others. This might not be unique for the private institution. I'm sure Sultan Qaboos University and other public, colleges, they are using that. But the good thing about the private institution, they are dealing with these platforms long time back, and they had the chance to improve those platforms, for a while. The academic affiliation also, as I mentioned earlier, they, transfer their experience in developing online contents, and those institutions that have franchise agreements or validation agreement, they leverage from the online contents available with their academic partners. Blended education experience is not new for the private institution because we can see that postgraduate programs are all working through the same, blended learning, scheme. Resilience and agility in decision making in private higher education institution might be seen obvious because they were able to to convert their experience very quickly, because the decision is not taking too long, unlike the government sector where they have to take a lot of approvals, especially when they want to for example, buy some platforms for training, for whatever. But I think they are much better in this area. Unlike other institutions, unlike other countries as well, there are a lot of challenges facing online education in Oman. Number one comes the legislation and policies. Until near future, until a few months ago, the online education is not an education or a learning that is widely recognized in the government, and we have quite tough policies on that. Where the pandemic gave us another opportunity to rethink about our directions in the future, and they press all the buttons to move very fast. So now we start working on policies, but now we are responding for the short term, having some ministerial decision to help the institution to to run the academic year. But also we are thinking of how we will do with the long term, because as you know that this pandemic might become the new normal. So with that new normal, we need to think about how we will handle the whole components of higher education through online and e-learning. Information technology, of course, unfortunately, when we started the pandemic, there is a very poor ICT infrastructure and weak internet bandwidth, and some virtual communication, applications were banned, like Skype and other applications. Lack of internet accessibility to some students due to cost and availability of learning, and some students, they don't have the learning devices. So these kind of challenges in the information technology side. Human resource side, we might face some lack of expertise in designing online courses, and we don't blame the sector on that. In fact, the main reason for that is well known, that this pandemic happened on a sudden. We didn't give the institution enough time to plan it well. So I think by the coming semester we might be in a better shape. Institutional level, as I mentioned earlier, there's kind of lack of investment in e-learning structure within the institution. Some of them also lack of online services such as online registration, online payment, online counseling, which can be replaced easily, difficult in replacing practical laboratory requirements, and I think this one will stay for long unless we work hard to resolve it. Difficult in monitoring the quality of e-learning, and this is institutional-wise and national-wise, dilemma, and this will be developed while we are developing the KPIs and other measures for quality assurance. Student readiness as well, it's a challenging thing, and this is not only for in Oman, I think even worldwide. Students' ability to comprehend the online education is quite tough, especially with undergrad students. Mature students who are on the master level might be in a better shape, but with undergrads, and we've witnesses that in early stages on March and April. Student work quality and integrity at stake. Unfortunately, the plagiarism cases, you might notice it will become increasing because the working remotely will give more chance to the student. Whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, it will happen because the students, they might feel overwhelmed, and this might be the way to get from that pressure. Student accessibility to internet services, and I mentioned that earlier, lack of support to the students with special needs, and this is a very important category that might be, I would say, will be oppressed or might not get the right service because it's very difficult for this category to work remotely. Students require more support in different educational and non-educational matters, not unlike the traditional way of teaching. The student might seek more help while we are online. The benefits of online education, I think it's very obvious economically, socially. I will not, give more details on that, but just I'll go. I know you are waiting for the scenarios, so I will just jump from here very quickly. We know that economically, socially, there are a lot of benefits of having online education. It will save a lot by, capitalizing on the current infrastructure, and we can accommodate more students with the same facilities, with the same, cost. We were long time we were talking about the fourth IR, the fourth industrial revolution, without thinking that we might need it. We might need to use the tools, soon as we expected. So, 1 year back, when we talk about the fourth IR, we just thinking of, speaking about something for future and not the near future. 2020 is nudging all the, the buttons to start thinking of utilizing these fourth IR tools like Internet of Things and virtual learning and VR and all other tools for big data, blockchains, and all of this. In higher education, one of the benefits, but this benefits will happen only if the higher education institution work hard toward that. Innovative learning can be, can reduce a lot of costs for the institutions. At the same time, can give better experience to students where we can, giving them adaptable and personalized learning through using the innovative techniques. Of course, the cost effectiveness in administrating and leading the higher education, managing all the process. Well, I think you are all waiting for this slide, and to be honest, until now we don't have the final scenario. But I would say that I will just share with you how the Ministry of Higher Education thinking of the coming semester. There were a lot of scenarios. There used to be 3. The good news, they are become 2. The third scenario, which was going business as usual, which is I don't think is an option anymore, because we see how the cases is increasing in the country. So the first option we are in favor as Minister of Higher Education and as the sector, because we had a lengthy discussion with the sector about the coming scenario, and we think that blended learning is the best scenario to start the coming academic year. And with that scenario, we have been discussing a lot of schemes and approaches how we will go for blended learning. And in fact, blended learning can be taken from different, with different, aspects. The scenario that we are thinking of, instead of having percentage of the program coming on campus or off campus, we thought of having the categories that have to be in the campus, and those categories that can work remotely and can manage well remotely. So we thought of having priority of attendance. For 4 categories, which is the foundation students whom were lefting school and they have the first year experience in higher education. We thought they have to break the gap very well by having face-to-face experience. Students in the first year of their studies might be one of those priorities, but also some of the institutions, they think maybe last year, students, they might be also priority, especially in certain programs. So we will leave that to the institution. We will give them the guideline to choose which category has to come, or have to come on campus. But foundation students definitely we are in agreement about it. Student with disability and special needs has to come to the campus, because I think, especially with the with the blind students, I don't think they can get it well remotely. Practical courses, the courses or the programs that have a lot of components, practical components, laboratory components, or I would say clinical components for the health specialization, they might need to come to on campus. The other categories can work off campus, and we were in agreement that the number of students should be available within the institution at the same time should not exceed 20% of the total students. And the other scenario, which is similar to the last semester, in fact, I don't think you or us, we are in favor of that scenario, but if the circumstances just put us, cornered us, and we have no other option, then we'll start 100% e-learning. So I think it's wise that the institution to work hard focus more on building their capabilities and their program to embrace online facilities. My last slide to share with you, and this is the recommendation how we can be better in online education, whether on a national level or a higher education level. I think the first step, and online cannot work well without the step to improve the current ICT infrastructure, nationally and internally within the higher education institutions, and improve, of course, the internet bandwidth and coverage and the speed and all of these things is very important. And we should have some special packages for the internet usage for students, because we faced a lot of challenges last semester where some of the students, they cannot afford, still internet service is quite expensive for them. To capitalize on the current online efforts experience, to develop a comprehensive online strategy and protocols, to have a full ecosystem of online education, and that we should focus in higher education and post higher education, and of course within higher education. Without fixing and having proper schooling system that based on digital learning, I don't think the students will be ready for online education in higher education. To develop national guidelines and protocols to ensure students' well-being, safety, and security, and to minimize the risk of poor or fraud online experience. This is really important. Everyone is talking, about this topic right now, and everyone is worried about how we create a very safe environment for students in online. Don't forget that we are dealing with a fragile category who are semi-teenagers, so we need to be very careful when dealing with undergrads, and then let them go 100% online with online experience. To develop national e-learning platform that meets higher education needs with minimum cost, and you might think of Omran as an initiative, and they are willing to help as well. To set clear performance indicators to measure teaching and learning through e-learning, and this is also very important with great focus on learning outcomes. For the higher education institution, I think it's time to invest more on training their staffs and create the technical infrastructure, and they should not wait, because even after the pandemic, we are thinking of online education to be one of the characteristics of higher education in Oman, and it will be embraced anyway, whether it's blended or 100% online. We are thinking of having long-term policies on that. More coordination and collaboration with private companies, local charities, and endowment funds to support students with lower income by providing them with tablets, laptops. I don't think it will be wise forcing students to attend online where they don't have the basic equipment for it. Higher educations to invest also on institutions to invest on research and innovation to improve online infrastructure. And I think from the countries that I mentioned earlier, the key success, or the key leader for online environment on online infrastructure was higher education, where they can conduct a lot of research and innovation on that. It's time to utilize 4th IR tools to personalize learning and to provide unique learning experience for students. And this is really very, very important. This is all from my side. Thank you so much for listening. Really, excited to hear the good practices from Sultan Qaboos University and from one of the private institutions. And I hope I added some value for what you have known about about the pandemic in Oman. But also, I will just my last word on that. I think the burden on higher education institution is more than in the ministry, because you are the one who you should take care of the operational side. So we need to think of more creatively, and we should have platforms to solve a lot of problems that might be unseen yet for online education. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Jokha, for an insightful presentation. And thank you for sharing the Ministry of Higher Education plan. We're all, as you mentioned, looking forward to it. And I think everyone now is setting the scenarios, setting up for both scenarios. And I think also that we're more also, as you mentioned, in favor of the blended learning. For so many different advantages that it has, such as assessments on campus for integrity, as well as reduction of time spent. Hopefully it will work out for everyone. So thank you again for your presentation. Dr. Jokha, yesterday, the Gulf Network for Quality Assurance for Higher Education conducted a webinar with quality agencies sharing their experiences on how they're adjusting the standards for higher education in their own countries, in different countries. I'm wondering, how is the ministries going to change its monitoring and support mechanism for the higher education institution?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mona. Yes, I have attended that webinar yesterday, and it was very interesting discussion how different countries goes with the quality assurance, monitoring scheme. Maybe the technical side can be with OAQHE and how they will monitor the quality, but in terms of the Ministry of Higher Education, we are working in two directions. Short-term direction, where we are, discussing how we will start the coming semester and how we can monitor the quality within that semester. And we will depend a lot on maybe some student survey, academic surveys to tell us how the experience was. But the long-term one is about how we can go for licensing online program, because as you know that the pandemic when it's happened and the online education started, we didn't have a lot of planning how we can do it better and how we can have the right policies to support students, support institutions. But we are working on that, with and consulting the higher education institution on how we can do it better for long term, and how we can also do it, as a successful experience, even if it's short term. Don't forget that we have a lot of students might be graduating soon. We don't want the last dot or the last semester they are having is having bad experience on it. So it's all count, whether it's 1 semester or 2 semesters. It's really very critical, and we should, when we put a lot of burden for the internal quality system within the institution to monitor this experience and to get the feedback on regular and periodic, I would say, time, instead of waiting till the end of the semester.
Thank you. What is the expectations of the Ministry of Higher Education or higher education institutions for the new norm? What are you expecting that institutions do differently for the next academic year? Besides, of course, the fact that we already talked about learn and learn.
I think I will leave this to the institution, but what I can say, we would like to see more innovative, solution for the higher education, experience for students, instead of just depending on the regulations that come from the Ministry of Higher Education. And you noticed as well that whatever comes from the ministry is just the guidelines. But I think the burden all with the institutions themselves, how they can run this experience differently, how to adapt more differently. And we don't want to, have a mimic experience from all institutions, but we would like to see some good practices. And in fact, I'm eager today to see that good practices and how it's different than others. And I think the hero now, or the special institution now, is that bring different experience, which is not similar to others, but it's just, a way better than others. We can learn from, global, our international universities, but still we feel that maybe our local institution can come up with great ideas and can help the institution, help the students differently. Keep all the efforts focused on students and how we make this experience for him very interactive, friendly, and support support those students all the way, socially, academically, technically, and I would like to see some good stories on that. So this is, I think it's all with the institutions themselves rather than the ministry.
Thank you. Another question from the participants is on student attendance, and Professor Yusra is wondering how is the Ministry of Higher Education going to follow up with student attendance and the students on scholarships?
As you noticed, Dr. Mona, from my previous answer, we put a lot of, burden on that to the institution themselves. We don't want to spell out the details, but I think the attendance to be, will be observed differently than the face-to-face. But I think you need to make sure that students, they attend even online, classes, because if the student is not attending online classes, is not attending face-to-face, classes, what do you think the outcomes of that come out of that experience? It will be either failure, either compromises on the outcomes. So I think the attendance should be managed by the institutions themselves with an advice that they should, focus on that. They should not leave it because it's online and students, what is good for him, and it's up to him. I don't think in this age, we cannot say to the students, it's up to you. We need to ensure that students, they have a lot of self-study going around, and we need to give them all the assistance on that. The way we, assist students, the exams, whatever, if they fail, they will put a lot of blame to the institution, saying that the institution is not, pushing me to attend online. I couldn't understand. I can, there will be a lot of gaps if students are not attending online. But again, we will just put a lot of pressure on the institution to create their own framework and attendance. But again, as a ministry, we see that attendance is vital, whether it's online or face-to-face.
Yeah, and I think part of it, I don't know if you agree with me, student engagement will replace a good part of the attendance.
True. Very true, Dr. Mona, yeah. and how you can keep them engaged without seeing them coming to those virtual, classes, those meetings. And we are expect more than I think the burden that comes under the academic staff, it's just way more than face normal traditional education, because he's in this case he's not only work having his role as an academic only to explain the subject and that's it. He has to make sure that the student is engaged, he is not facing any problem, very well supportive all the way. If he need any special help during the day, he might communicate with his lecturer at night, in the midnights, in the at any time, because he needs that support. So I think you have seen that happening. Everyone saying that the burden coming to the academic staff is just more than before. The role is changing. It's not like just he's spilling out the subjects and the information and then he can disappear. I think he has to make sure that the student is engaged and involved as well.
One more question, because we're running out of time, but we cannot stop asking you questions. Manal Jali is asking, are there a platform? It is the Ministry of Higher Education plan to have a platform such as the Swiss framework that you presented it to us?
This is kind of dialogue is happening with Omran. Omran is trying to initiate a platform, but for me, I see there's no platform that can fit all. You have different programs, you have different needs, different requirements. So each, the current platform might be good and we can continue with them, but it might require a lot of improvement and enhancement to become more friendly and interactive. I think many of the institutions last semester, they went through a lot of video, and recorded materials. Would like to see more interactive, experience for students in the coming semester, and some live discussions happening more. I know some of the institutions, they are doing that, but still, I think some of the institutions, they did online on traditional way. And online, platforms is improving in a way that can meet and can personalize the experience for students much better. So the national platform might it's under discussion, but I don't think it's the magic solution for online education. I think you need to learn from the good practices, but also you might develop your own platforms that fit your needs and requirements. Yeah, and I think we should not wait until the national platform is happening. But we wish to have a national platform that can accommodate all type of programs, all needs and requirements from the sector.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jokha. We're moving on, but at the end of the session, we might have time to go over a couple more questions. Our next panelist is Dr. Ibraheem Al-Harthy from the Sultan Qaboos University. Dr. Ibraheem will be sharing with us how a public university dealt with the pandemic. Dr. Ibraheem Al-Harthy is the Director of Quality Assurance Office at SQU. He's an Associate Professor of Educational Psychology. Dr. Ibraheem is an external reviewer for several accreditation bodies. Dr. Ibraheem, the mic is with you.
Thank you, Dr. Mona. Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First, I would like to thank, I don't know if you can hear me and you see me.
Yes, we can.
First, I'd like to thank Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education for preparing this, organizing this webinar. I think the webinar should focus on practices and sharing good practices, and also mostly to better learning and from other institutions as well. Also, we'd like to thank my colleagues, Prof. Taqi, Dr. Mona, Dr. Jokha, and Dr. Samya for joining and joining me today with in this webinar. Well, my presentation will speak about two things here as I am requested to speak about, which are the lessons we learned from last semester, and also about what's going to happen next. I have 15 minutes to spend on this, and I promise to just finish on time after 15 minutes. Sultan Qaboos University has started the online learning before 2000, like 20 years before, and we do have policies on place to cover this. And as the Dr. Jokha said, and Prof. Taqi, they cover the logistic part and the technical part. I think in my presentation a little bit, I'll just speak a little bit deeper about, just try to not repeating their points about the logistic and technical parts we are facing. I think as a public university, we are facing the same thing they mentioned, like about platforms and experiences, faculty, students. That technical part, we do have it here. But after spending 20 years or more than 20 years on using WebCity and Moodle and online learning, we just discovered that about 54% of our classes are online, are using the platform, or using the online learning. There's still a lot of job to be done, but the lesson we have learned, and just to summarize this very well, I think our look at the health and safety just need to be visited again. The definition is not appropriate, or I think we need to just go beyond the definition we had. And I'm pretty sure that OAQHE as well, they put a lot of efforts on this and their standards. And I think one of those criterion is health and safety. I think we need to go back to this definition and revise the procedures in place. So, and also risk management plan, I mean, and data. We need to use the data to just redefine the health and safety. What do we mean about health and safety? I think what happened in the past, we just waited for in March, we just waited for the committee, the higher committee, just to tell us, stop teaching face to face. I think we should have done something. We should have done something before that, as we have a pandemic in place, and that's process need to be revisited and redefined and have another procedures. That's a big lesson we need to learn from what happened in the past. Also, another lesson we need just to focus on are the behaviors. Behaviors, as you see in my slide here, the behaviors we have teaching and learning. So what do we mean by how do we define teaching? Now, defining teaching is not what they mentioned in the past, that traditional versus online. I think traditional means does not mean face to face and you go just to be more just fully online. I don't think this definition, if you stop doing face to face and you're going to online and you're becoming very updated in teaching. No, I don't think that's appropriate definition. I think teaching need to be redefined as we have seen in the previous three months. What happened are those learning outcomes defined in the past well delivered in the online learning. What about the productive session? We used to give 50 minutes for one session. Does that 50 minutes still need to be there for online learning? What do we mean by having a conductive session? I think what we are learning from what happened in these past 3 months, I think we need to redefine the teaching, the teaching productive session. It does not mean going from traditional to online. We mean actually the time, materials, curriculum, operations, whatever. One challenge we have seen in this teaching part is the assimilation. What we believe here at Sultan Qaboos University, what we do in traditional, as you call it, face-to-face learning and teaching, we can build environment in using any platform to deliver it. But the problem we have seen that assimilation is not happening well. So I don't think what we, like, for example, the research has shown that a very well built online environment can do way better in building teaching and learning experience. But I think we are so behind in this. For example, like deadlines, skills that can be built in the environment. But I think we are a little bit behind in this. We need to put so much effort on that, because we have the center. We have Center for Education Technology here. They did a lot of work on that. But I think we still need to do more work on training the faculty to build and online learning in a way that can assimilate the face-to-face learning. I think that can be done and will save a lot of headache. Assessments. One challenge we have seen the assessment is the investigation part. I think our center is working on that right now. I think they are coming close to have a system that can take care of this issue. Learning parts. So I think also we have learned in the past 3 months that our learners, our students are capable of doing this. They have the skills. And if we go back to the OAQHE standards, that entry standards, you need to revisit the entry standards to have those students have to have the skills to run the learning part or teach learning part. So I think the definition was appropriate for the learning part, and graded attributes, it's fine. But it's still you need to measure it and see if that happened and delivered. Independency, that's a big question. Do students learn independently? Can they do that by themselves? We still need to do a lot of research and collect a lot of data on that. Availability. Students, because what happened, not all of them, or there are some percentage of the students, they did not attend classes, and we need to fix that in the next semester coming. Integrity part, also the center is taking care of that. Our Center of Educational Technology is working in the integrity part, where they need to come up with some other features in the platform we're using right now to fix this in our students. We have some cases, of course, as other institutions, and these cases were so high compared to other semesters in the past. But still, I think the most lesson learned from behaviors, teaching and learning, I think we need to is the assimilation. We need to have an environment that can assimilate the face-to-face environment. Coursework programs, they have theory and practice. We have a challenge with the practice part. I think that practice part need to be revisited and redesigned, and also with the stakeholders, because the stakeholders will not be happy with having online many hours of the program credit hours to be online. That something need to be revisited, because we do have some accreditation bodies. They will put some restrictions on that. You cannot just give online and continue to do that. So there are certain amount of hours can be offered online. Not all hours. Not maybe, for example, you can do 20 or 25 hours, but you cannot do everything online. So the most challenge with the coursework programs is the practice part, because as Dr. Jokha said, there's labs, there are field work, there are training in schools. So we do have the training in hospitals. That part still need to be fixed, and we do have some arrangements for the next semester. I'll just share it in a bit. About the research programs, supervision went well because it was done online, but the problem is with constructivism. Constructivism means can students construct, build these skills we cannot know, because this is left to them. They might go and find other sources to do that work. We still need to do some work with that constructivism part. Progression rate in our institution here at Sultan Qaboos University, I think was very high in 3 months. I mean the passing rate. And that need to be revisited because of the assessment part with the faculty. Maybe need to adjust or readjust themselves to the online environment. Faculty, they do research, and that's fully impacted because data collection in the field and experiments were stopped because of the pandemic. So we need to find assimilation again. There are some other options have been taken by other institutions. If we benchmark this with the international, there are some also data, assimilated data you can use, but this faculty are not trained. We have about maybe not fully trained or not all of them trained to use this assimilation data, and we have 1,300, about 1,300 faculty. Also, community service, we need to think about other options to do that because it was completely stopped. And they do some admin work, and that I think that was completely fine. Other slide I want to share with you is the education model. I think what we need, as I hear from Dr. Prof. Taqi and Dr. Jokha, I think we need to revisit the education model we look at. So do we still need to look at the do we need to still have 30 or 50 minutes per session? I mean lecture. Or can we just do it 20 minutes? Because research has said now in China right now, they said 15 to 20 minutes enough to deliver, to structure a lecture. So to be so productive, but you need to incorporate some other additional activities where students can do it by themselves. So it's not a must that a faculty stand in and teach for 50 minutes. So the educational model needs just to be redesigned, revisited, relooked by research, I think, just not spontaneously, of course, by research. Curriculum, as OAQHE said 2.2, the curriculum has to meet the learning outcomes, but does not say how to do it. That's left to the benchmarking activities you do. So practice and theory, that has to be relooked, revisited. Traditional way in the past, you deliver theory and you do some practice. Is that going to happen in next semester? We have to make sure that the assimilation we will build in the platform we are using is very well very well established. So do faculty have this much experience with building or designing environment or environment to have some practice in that curriculum? I think we still doubt that. Not all of them have that practice part, but there are some other techniques we have done in assessment part where they can still work on the practice part. Teacher and student, much training need to be done in the faculty part. The student also, I think we need to redefine the student approach here. Is not only to take the materials and read them and deliver to them. I think there are some independency as OAQHE 2.4, the teaching quality part, that the student has to be independent in just seeking and the information by himself or herself. I think we need to do some little work on that as well. The assessment part, we have suffered a little bit in the past because of the integrity and academic security. And I think our center is building something new for the next semester where this issue will be 100% solved. So scenarios for next semester, I just have 3 minutes left. This is again is not 100% approved. We're still working the scenarios for the next semester. We have first year students coming. There are 3,100 students. The orientation will be online, fully online, and that is already taken care of. Centers are building that online, and supports will be offering testing also for the foundation department. For foundation testing, some equations will be there to as those used in the high education, in the high diploma on June, but still that not finally approved. Maybe some equations will be in place, and everything will be for that. The freshmen will be online, and that's still in final process. For the programs and the teaching part, we have a few programs will be in campus. That programs will be from medicine, nursing, education, and some few courses from other colleges. Majority will be online, but those specific programs like phase 3 medicine, they have to be in campus. Attendance will be mandatory. Assimilations are we're working on that to assimilate the environment to be similar to those to be face-to-face. Assessments, as I said, that our Center of Education Technology working on building that navigation system, and also we have developed some tools here at Sultan Qaboos University to assist the faculty in familiarizing themselves with different techniques of assessment. It doesn't have to be testing every time. Assessment also we have policy in place. We use data. For example, fall 2019 we have 76,000 students have taken a test. I mean, I know we have 18,000 actually, but I mean number of tests taking is 76,000 students have taken a test. So that will be a big challenge next semester to handle it online and in campus. But we are working on that. Assistant tools, as I said, it is developed and it's provided to colleges and faculty departments so they know what other options they can use. Midterm will be online, final will be some on campus, and with some academic assistance as well. Accommodation, we have, for female, we have about capacity for 7,000 actually, but right now because of the pandemic we can take 1,800 students female and 500 male students, and that will be of course for those certain programs to be on campus. And I know some finals will be on campus as well, so we expect more students to be coming to the campus, but that will be scheduled like maybe we start this time week number 15, 16, 17, 18, maybe we extend 2 weeks just to have those just to take all that capacity and just to also follow the procedures of the safety. And so, for example, one student is allowed in one room. Right now, we have 2 students in one room. So that will be taken on care of. Restaurants are instructed also. Not all restaurants will be open, and few restaurants, and that some procedures are also in place. Examination also have some rules on campus, and as well as transportation. To campus, we cover about 100 kilometers from university, so we'll provide the transportation as we did before to all students that are requested to come to the Sultan Qaboos University. More lines will be offered just to solve the capacity issue in each bus. Also, during in campus, I mean, from colleges that will be also running. More schedules will be in place. I think this is everything from Sultan Qaboos University so far. And any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Ibraheem, for your presentation and for sharing the good practices of SQU with us. Dr. Ibraheem, I was wondering, as you were talking about the challenges, what was the most challenge that SQU faced in the transition to emergency remote learning? I know there are a lot of challenges you have talked about.
Of course, there were many, as Dr. Jokha said, the legislation, we do have some in place. IT, we do have some, we have infrastructure in place. Human resources, we do. But I think the most challenge we faced is the gap in the digital access. That's the most challenging part, because you cannot, if students come to you and say, I don't have internet, what you can do? What you can do about the student? Because some students, they have to walk from their small town to another big town to access the internet. That's a big challenge we have faced, and you need to work with that, because you cannot just say I cannot help you. And we have seen a lot of that. Also, another big issue is the assessment. Another big challenge was the assessment part, because how are you gonna know that student's just doing the assessment by himself or by herself? Also, one another thing, as I said, it was the assimilation. We need to have we struggle with the designing part, because you need to design the environment in that platform to be as similar as the face-to-face teaching, and not all of the faculty has that background to build that simulation. I think that's most.
I agree with you, Ibrahim. Your point on the internet really addresses the issue of inequality of distance learning, because students have different capabilities and different internet access. As for the assessments, also, I think it was a great challenge for all of us. And I think the transitioning to the emergency remote learning allowed us to totally rethink and make alternative assessments, and course delivery made us make a whole change in the distant teaching learning environment. Dr. Ibraheem, let's end it on a good note. What was one of the factors that SQU really was successful in this transition?
I think the asset we have is our students. I think they are responsible. I don't think I think because we accept top students of the country, of the graduates from higher diploma, I think they are so much responsible to handle by themselves. And we had some cases, but we have seen good satisfaction rate in our side in that part. Another asset we have also, I think, that help us, that our faculty. We do have 1,300 faculty. I know not all of them were very well skilled to create and design their online learning, to design their classes, but they were so helpful and so responsive to the training provided in the colleges. That's a big thing.
You would say the maturity of the students and the growth, as well as the adjustment of the faculty.
Yes, I would say yes. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Ibraheem. And hopefully we might have a couple of minutes at the end to answer some more questions. Our next panelist is Dr. Samya Al-Shanfari from Muscat University. Dr. Samya is the Executive Director of Quality and Institutional Performance at Muscat University. She's the Assistant Dean, she was the Assistant Dean for Academic and Support and Student Affairs in the College of Banking and Student Affairs. She was also actually the Deputy Chair of the OAQHE. Dr. Samya, please switch on your camera and mic, and you have the mic. Dr. Samya, we cannot hear you. You're still muted.
I think I am I hope that the voice is clear now.
Yes, it is.
Okay. First of all, I would like
to full screen.
Is it okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
First of all, I would like to say hello to everybody who's joining us today and thank Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education for inviting us. I'm really delighted to be part of the conversation that is happening now, trying to talk about the pandemic and how we are all putting effort to adjust and to move forward. I will share my slides with you. Juliet, if you can enable, I think I have been disabled to share the screen.
Dr. Samya, you should be able to share. We look into the control. You should be able to share.
I think I have just lost the ability to share. Okay. I hope that you can see the screen now.
Yes.
As I said, I'm glad to share Muscat University experience. These are the topics I'm planning to cover in my presentation, quick presentation. I will start talking about the lessons that we have learned during the past 19 days, and then talk about how we address the learning and teaching scenarios, the precautions that Muscat University has taken in order to deal with the pandemic in terms of security and in terms of the safety. Also, I will cover a little bit about the way we are handling student support at Muscat University. First of all, regarding the lessons that we have learned, the first lesson I would say is expect the unexpected. Muscat University is a young university, and it is a university that offers programs in Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Business and Management, and Faculty of Transport and Logistics. I think nobody was prepared for what happened when COVID-19 came, and we are also in the same boat as everybody. We are also like you. It was in the world of management, what happened is called the black swan syndrome, which means that something happens and brings with it the ambiguity. It brings with it the uncertainty and confusion. It brings struggle. So I think we had our share, despite the fact that relatively our transition to online was swift. Swift because our experience with online learning comes as part of our collaboration with Aston and Cranfield. We have very strong associations with these two esteemed universities, and our programs, especially the undergraduate and postgraduate, they do have the teaching part using the technology and using the online platforms. However, we did have our struggle in the sense that, take for example, the foundation program. We had to make sure that we are ready for this transition. Now, if we look at the lessons, it is very important that I mention a very critical lesson we have learned, which is the importance of leadership during the time of crisis. I think the break out of the news happened on the 14th of March. And on the 15th, which was a Saturday, the whole management came on board. We have a very inspiring leader, Dr. Al-Shakily, who called the senior leadership, and they had a quick meeting on a Thursday morning to discuss how we are going to move and to shift into adjusting to the situation. 14, we heard the news. 15, there were meetings, and we were at that time approaching the end of the midterm holiday. And the following morning, we were on online, completely online mode. I think being a small university has its advantages, swift decision making, which happened and helped move very smoothly. Another lesson we have learned is that in order for us to move forward, we have to collaborate. We have to work together. We have to sit together. So there were times that long meetings were held to discuss how the changes are going to take place. The fourth lesson we have learned is that you cannot take the online full-fledged learning without considering the ecosystem that you operate within. You cannot say that, okay, now we are online and it is just, it is affecting the students or it is affecting the lecturers now. We had to look internally and re-examine everything inside the university in terms of our committee structure, in terms of our governance system, in terms of the allocations, in terms of the strength of the IT system. So a change at this size does not happen in isolation where you look at one thing. You have to look at your whole system. So this is one very precious lesson we have learned. The fifth lesson we learned is that there is a need to correct misconceptions. As I said, we did have experience in working with the online learning. However, with some lecturers, especially in the Pathway Foundation program, you had when you put a pressure for them to move online completely, you have to look into how you have to examine the understandings of the online learning for everybody. So, and by saying misconceptions, I'm not talking about Muscat University only, I'm talking about all the higher education institutions. At one time, online learning was considered to be less in value than face-to-face. Many people thought that online learning is less in quality rather than face-to-face. However, the pandemic proved that no, that is not the case. In fact, there are a lot of opportunities and good things that came with online learning. Also, there was a misconception, and I think it also exists in the other higher education institutions. When I say that, what do we mean by online learning? With some cases, does it mean that we just upload the PowerPoint slides, or do we need to go deeper? I think a lesson that we are embracing here and we are very highly aware of is that online learning it comes with its own conditions and with its own principles that you need to adapt. I think there is always an opportunity in a crisis, and this is the last one of the lessons that we have learned, that COVID came and it had its impact on the families, on students, on everybody. However, we have to learn to look into the silver lining and the opportunities that come with such a pandemic. So more or less, these were a glimpse of some of the lessons that we have learned. I think I have to say that we had to force ourselves to ask the difficult critical questions. Now, if I would like to just zoom back a little bit and mention one of the observations we have noticed in the sector as a whole, is that one of the critical questions we need to ask is, are we really transitioning to online learning? Now, is what is happening is the full transition? Now, literature tells us that if you want to transition to online learning, you have to go through different stages. Now, if we look at the sector, many of the institutions, they might think that they have transitioned to online learning. However, if you really want to examine this transition, you have to look at the stage where they have reached. If the institutions in general have moved from a stage where you have certain people embracing the online learning, fighting for it, working on it, driving it, but the rest are not, then this is not online learning. At Muscat University, we do understand that online learning has to be sustainable, and you have to support it with the correct structure. You have to support it with the right rules and regulations and policies, which is something I'm not claiming that is perfect with us. We are still trying to develop, and we are working on developing the policies, but we do understand the importance of sustainability, and this is one of the things that we continue to improve at Muscat University. Moving to another point. As I said, one of the things that we did look at is studying the different scenarios that we will be receiving students with. So Muscat University has considered 3 different scenarios of whether we will have the block teaching and inviting some students back to the campus. They have looked into the blended learning, and they have looked at the online delivery. And we are glad that we have heard today from the Ministry of Higher Education with the opinion that we are going, it is likely to be that priority will be given to some categories of students to come back to the campus. And as you can see, these are some of the possibilities that we have already looked at. The issue is that we are concerned about how we can make the transition very smooth for students when they come back. The allocation of the resources and the way certain subjects are taught do not permit the full online teaching. Take, for example, students who have labs, for example, experience. This is something that we are seriously considering and thinking about how we are going to address it. So it is a matter of preparing for different scenarios. Now, when it comes to learning and teaching, we are aware that academic staff preparedness to shift entirely to online is something very important. And as a result, we worked on providing training for staff. Excuse me. We worked on providing training for staff. I think Dr. Jokha and Dr. Ibraheem have mentioned the extent to which staff are prepared to embrace their new roles. With online learning, the lecturer or the faculty role changes completely. So it goes beyond the face-to-face delivery, and it is more of being aware of the different roles they have to embrace. So a lecturer has to we have to make sure that the lecturers are very prepared in terms of realizing their social role, their technical role, knowing how to deal with the technology. Pedagogical role, which is very, very important, because you want to ensure that lecturers move away from the traditional method of teaching into another method that comes with the learning, with the online learning. there is another dimension, managerial role, time management, stress management, social role, being empathetic with the students. So learning and teaching has to be, you have to change and transform the way it is happening for both staff and for students. Curriculum adaptation, now this is very important. We are dealing with Generation Z, and knowing that Generation Z has got certain characteristics, we know that they are tech savvy, we know that they have short attention span, we know that they are multitasking, we know that they are, they get bored very quickly. So what does that mean in terms of implications, in terms of how we teach our students? So I think going back and having training for all the faculty to ensure that we are able to have a successful experience with the students is very important. I think that this time are the perfect times for the faculty, for the partners to step in. And I think we have been very lucky that our partners have been very collaborative in terms of helping with the training, extending training for our faculty. I think that we have witnessed some successful experiences with our staff. So it is very important to look for these experiences and promote them, whether these best practices are in terms of succeeding to motivate students, or whether it is in increasing their engagement, or whether it is in collaboration, seeing different examples of collaborations with the faculty. These are some of the best practices that it is important to witness and then celebrate in the university. Moving to the teaching and learning, as you have mentioned all, and I think I will be repeating only what you have already heard. Muscat University has considered different scenarios of moving to online. So an important decision is whether we want to consider the synchronous recording, which is sessions that are recorded, that students are attending, or the pre-recorded sessions, which are the asynchronous. Now, it is very important to understand that there is a difference, and online learning requires very conscious decision about where you want to introduce, starting from the learning outcomes. So while the synchronous learning, online learning, looks at the personal participation inside the classroom, you decide to introduce the asynchronous if you want to stimulate reflection and cognitive skills. So what does that mean in terms of the curriculum and the implications? All of these are very important questions to be asked.
I hate to interrupt, but we're running out of time, and I would like to ask you a couple of questions, so please wrap up your presentation.
Yes, regarding the scenarios, as I said, we are looking into how we will bring back the students to the campus, gradually together with the staff. Regarding the preventive measures, I think what we did does not differ completely from what the other universities did, but we have had a committee chaired by the Vice Chancellor herself, in which there is an emergency plan that looks into the safety measures, roles, responsibilities, threats, and being very careful how we can maintain safety for our students. These are examples of what you can see in the university, and as I said, I'm sure that many of the other universities have taken precautions, including keeping a record to measure the temperature of the staff and students who are around. Regarding this is my final slide, which is handling student support activities. As we said, we try to diversify the e-platforms that we use for the students. Our concern was how we make sure that all the students have access and provide one-to-one support. There were brilliant initiatives at Muscat University where there are blocks for students where the learning center will have one-to-one sessions with the students. So this is more or less how we choose to support our students in Muscat University. Yes, Dr. Amal.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I do apologize, but we're running out of time. Dr. Samya, I would like to end this webinar on, again, an optimistic note. What, in your opinion, do you think were some of the positive externalities that we got out of this experience? Dr. Jokha mentioned some of them earlier. In your opinion, as a private university, what are these positive externalities that we got out of our experiences and this shift and the transition to the remote learning, remote emergency learning?
I think this transition has got potential of improving quality standards. I think all the institutions have now to redefine what quality standards mean inside the universities. So the improvement in terms of quality standards is one of the opportunities. I think there is going to be cost-effective management of the whole operation of universities if it is done well without cutting corners, but with really establishing a very solid, strong foundation or infrastructure for the IT. There is a very good opportunity that comes with research. Now, I think a critical question we need to ask ourselves is, do we know our students and how much we know about our students? And this is a very fertile area for research teaching nexus, that we look into how our students learn. I think another opportunity also can be in the institutions now having a time to stop and review their ecosystem, all of it together, including the extent to which they are ready to have a very strong system supported with the right funding and the right budgeting, and they question their purpose and existence for education and for the students.
Thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, we need to end. We're running out of time. But I would like to thank all my panelists today. I think we've covered a nice overview of the Ministry of Higher Education and Dr. Jokha's overview of the Ministry of Higher Education views and the scenarios for next year. We also covered a private universities as well as a public universities, Muscat University and Sultan Qaboos universities, experiences and plans for the next academic year. I would like to thank our panelists. I would like to thank our panelists for sharing their views, and hopefully they'll be kind enough to answer any questions by our participants. I would also like to thank our participants today. And I give back the mic to Professor Taqi for conclusion and final remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to thank everyone. Before we go to the conclusions, we have another 10 minutes, which is really poll. We have some live questions, very, very important, because what we're going to do, inshallah, during the Eid holidays, we will be working in preparing the report and the outcome of today's. It will have introduction, universities, colleges who attended, the objective of the webinar, topics, and presentation summary, and then the outcomes and the way forward with some questions really which we have as a sector. Now we have also 7 questions which we will be sharing it now in the poll. So please participate. Even the panel member, please participate, and we will see the result live. Should not take a lot of time. If the technology don't let us down, we should be finishing in 10 minutes time. So let's start with the polls. So this is the first question. So you please answer yes or no. What is it, Judy? We need more response from the attendees because only 20% so far participated. So let's make it quick, then we can finish quick. Please work harder. We need some more participation because we need at least 70% to make it significant. So some more, please. You just have to click yes or not. Okay, so this is the answer. 85% of the audience thinks yes and 15 no. That's very good. I think that's very, very helpful. So let's go to the next second question now. This is really, related to the students' engagement and whether we should engage the students in making a decision, important decision or not. So please, we need your participations. We need some more quick responses, please, because we are almost 30% now. We need at least 70% response rate, please. The results 90% yes and 10% no. We'll go to the next question now, please. This is very important question to us as an association because we might be planning one workshop related to the utilizing the technology in teaching and learning and blended learning. So please, we need your answer. And let's be very fast because we're running out of time. I promise everyone to finish in 10 minutes. So we need your responses, please, quick. Okay, so strongly agree 70%, average 30%, disagree 0%. That's very good. That will take us to the next question. So let's have your answers, please. I'm not trying to push, I'm trying to do time management. Still, we are below 50%, so please, we need some more clicks. Okay, so that's very good. Well, that's fine. If the sector thinks we do not need any support or the platform does not support, that's very good. Because to be honest, we have a lot of options right now. That's great. So let's go to the next question. this is, we don't just mean how to use the electronic platforms. We're talking about a lot of details there, handling assessments and also students engagement, because one of the biggest challenges is making the students engage. And we don't mean just students click the box and I'm attended. No, we're talking about the students participation. I'm sure there's a lot of techniques which we can talk to the sector about it. So let's get your participation on this question. That's great. 93% thinks yes, we need that training. So let's go to the next question, please. This is very, very important because see, usually we do workshop for one day, but if we want to cover all the topics, probably we talk about 3 days workshop or 5 days workshop. And we want to know what you think is very, very important. Do you think you can select obviously one or all the five? Based on that, we can plan the upcoming, not this year, probably might be not the upcoming webinar, but probably this year, where we can talk about the topic. Then we will decide how long the workshop should be, 1 day or 3 day or 5 days. So waiting for your responses. Okay, so at least we can set the priorities of the topics, and I think we have quite good percentage there. I think this will help us in planning the workshop which is related to these topics. Let's go to the next question, please. This is the last question. This is the last question. I know a lot of organizations already made their minds, but it will be nice to see like collective view sort of things on this. You guys doing good? We reached 40%. We need 30 more clicks, please.
Dr. Taqi, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Okay, sorry, sorry. So I'll repeat the bit which I said. I would like to thank everyone. I think it was a great opportunity, and as I said in the beginning, that this is from the sector to the sector. We have the views of Ministry of Higher Education, we have a views of a government university, and we have a views of the private university. Any of you, if you have any suggestions, please email it to me or Dr. Muna. You think anything we should incorporate in the recommendation or in the outcome of the today's session, which will be sent to the Ministry of Higher Education, and we will be sending it also to the legislation body. Again, thank you very much, everyone. Usually in the end of these events, we give a presents to the speakers and also the certificates to the participants. I promise you, after the Eid holiday or during the Eid holidays, you will be receiving emails with your electronic certificate. And obviously, I would like to thank our guest speakers. I would like a special thank to Dr. Jokha, Dr. Jokha she is not only the boss of the sector, she is a colleague to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Jokha. You are very kind, and we hope to see you and people from Ministry of Higher Education in upcoming events, and also if anything related to the quality assurance, we will invite OAAA. Thank you, everyone, and what they say, Eid Mubarak. I was about to say Eid Mubarak, so that's in Hindi, but in Arabic I'll say Eid Mubarak. And anyway, thank you very much, and enjoy your weekends, enjoy your Eid, and inshallah we hope all the best. Finger crossed. Deans, vice chancellors, heads in higher education sector, do remember there is huge challenges coming, and organization don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. So let's be good planner, and I'm sure we will overcome all the problems. Thank you very much. Ma salama.
Thank you.